June 1st, solar eclipse, of course, new moon. Gemini partially visible through the northern hemisphere, mostly China, Siberia, parts of Russia. So, what is Canada? What is your take on this particular eclipse, and how do you see the cycles of the eclipses playing out on a collective level this year?
I don't know about the collective level, but they're certainly having a turbo effect on me. This current eclipse, which is happening very shortly, is a minor eclipse. It is, and why is it a minor eclipse? There's two reasons. One, eclipses, I think you'll find, if you study them, have a greater effect the more people are actually under them. That might sound a bit odd because here we are, we're under an eclipse, everybody's under an eclipse, but you can really be under an eclipse.
Yeah.
Meaning that you can see the eclipse, the sun goes away, the world darkens, etc., etc. However, very few people in the world are going to suffer from that this time around because it's so far north. Now, we're going to get...
Are you there? I've lost you. This is the Eclipse of Silence with Rob Tillett. I'm not sure what happened. Yeah, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, I think we just had a partial eclipse of this interview.
An eclipse of my computer, I think.
Yeah, so now the sun has passed and we can continue on our merry way.
Oh, okay. Well, the eclipse, can you hear me now?
Yeah, clearly.
Good. The eclipses, there are three eclipses in this cycle. One is today, or tomorrow, your time, and then we have a lunar eclipse on the 15th. This is a total eclipse. That will be very visible to a large number of people. And then we have another partial eclipse, which only the penguins from the South Pole are going to see. That's on July 1st.
Right.
Now, it's significant that there are three eclipses in the sense that it's a strengthening of the cosmic pressure, if you like.
Right.
However, the two solar eclipses, which normally have massive effects on the world, are not so strong because hardly anybody's going to see them. When we look back to the eclipse of 1999, that was the most viewed eclipse in human history. Millions of people saw that eclipse.
Yeah.
If you can remember 1999, which was a long time ago,
yeah,
there were huge earthquakes, there were massive fires, there were all kinds of terrible tragedies, and they followed exactly along the path of the eclipse.
And the eclipse was most visible in Iran at that point in time, wasn't it?
It was Turkey, actually.
Turkey, okay.
And there was an earthquake there which displaced 200,000 people, killed thousands of people. Anyway, that is an example of the pathway of the eclipse being very, very, very visible and having a massive effect. It had other massive effects too, but I don't want to go into that right now. Now, this eclipse that we're dealing with, the eclipse in Gemini, it has less effect of the eclipse itself, but it's a south node eclipse. Now, the south node is the Quatre Diamants. We were talking about that before, remember?
Right.
And the south node itself is heavily aspected in a problematic way. Now, I've got all the facts in front of me here, because I wasn't really sure that we were going to talk about all this. And I'm writing an article on the eclipse now, which, because of the terrible effect that these things are having on me, I haven't finished, even though the eclipse is almost upon us. But I am writing it, and I usually like to look at the fixed stars as well.
Right.
The fixed stars, not many people deal with them. People think, oh, well, astrology is all about the stars. But really, astrology is about patterns. It's not about the stars. If the stars are indirectly affected, because the constellation, say, of Scorpio, which you were talking about before, or Libra, is not the same as the sign Libra, and never has been.
Right.
Even though at one stage the constellations and the signs coincided, which is why they have the same name. They don't, of course, now, because of the phenomenon known as precession of the equinoxes,
right,
whereby the equinoxes move backwards through the zodiac. These give us these ages that we talk about, the astrological ages, where the tropical zodiac, or the movable zodiac, moves backwards against the sidereal zodiac, or the zodiac constellations. Now, we're at the end of the astrological sign of Pisces. As we speak, the astrological sign of Pisces is really nearly over after 2,000 years of it, about to go into the famous age of Aquarius. But I don't think very many people in our lifetime are going to be experiencing the age of Aquarius precisely. Oh no, she's back in here. No, she's gone again. She has to be in a better mood. You can clip that. Anyway, this. Oh no, I've just lost my.
We were talking about people. There aren't many people that are going to experience the age of Aquarius.
There's not many people going to experience this eclipse directly, but it's still going to affect people in the north of Japan, people in Korea, people in the north of China, the north of Russia. It's going to go over there, and you'll see some effects. And whether or not it's going to make it's going to have an effect on the nuclear problem in Japan. It's an earthquake-prone area. My experience of eclipses is that they are often, especially the total eclipses, they are powerfully connected with earthquakes. And I've written quite a bit about that, which is on our website, but I won't worry about chasing it up for the moment. This, I think it's like a new moon in Gemini, and it's going to be a little bit more intense. I wouldn't be surprised to say that it was a...
Well, here we go. We've entered into the cone of silence. One more time with Rob Tillett. I think these gaps in speech is when he tunes out and probably attunes to some higher vibration of consciousness, which is downloading the next train of thought that he's about to deliver. And I get a sense that Rob is going to come back in to his body here in about a minute or so, maybe less than a minute, 40 seconds, and continue on with the story of the eclipses. Until then, you're listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. And this might be the most curious interview I've ever done. This is with Rob Tillett from Australia. And I think he's back.
Oh, am I back?
You're back now.
You can hear me?
I can. What I've shared with the listeners is I figured this out.
I could hear you. I heard it all.
You heard it all. Okay, yeah. There you go. You're back, and you've downloaded the next wave of knowledge.
Yeah, I guess so.
So here we go.
Where were we?
You're talking about Fukushima and the earthquakes.
Yeah. Well, no, I don't know whether you got this, but what I said was I don't think this eclipse in itself is really much more karmically significant than an intense new moon in Gemini.
Right.
Because not enough people are going to be affected by the eclipse directly. It's not actually going to block the light. So I think, however, that the fact that there are 3 eclipses in a row, and that we are in this incredibly life-changing time, that they will have more power than a simple new moon. Now, why are we in an incredibly life-changing time? It's because the planets Jupiter and Uranus moved into Aries, which is the vernal point, the beginning of the tropical zodiac. That in itself is extremely powerful. However, we had, a few months back, we had a grand cross in the cardinal signs.
Right.
Because we had Saturn opposing Jupiter from Libra.
Right.
Now, you've been experiencing Saturn going through Libra for the last year or so. So you must have felt fairly strongly pressured.
Yeah, I've had Saturn on my moon for Moon Mercury for most of the last year.
That's horrible.
Sorry, yeah.
We also had going across the other way. We have Pluto in Capricorn,
Right.
and we have the moon's nodes moving out of Capricorn into Sagittarius,
Mm-hmm.
because the moon's nodes always move backwards through the zodiac.
That's right, yeah.
I had the south node moving across my sun only too recently, and it's now moved into Gemini.
Right.
Gemini is under pressure at the moment because the south node's in it, and because these eclipses are there as well. Although, of course, the one on the 1st of July is not. But anyway, the point is this. The other thing that happened, which is really a great rarity, is that owing to this function of the precession of the equinoxes that we spoke about a few minutes back, the fixed star sheet, which is a very nasty little piece of work, also moved across the first degree of tropical Aries.
Right.
It doesn't move in the sidereal zodiac, so to speak, but what it is, when we say that the star moved onto the first degree of Aries, really what happened was the first degree of Aries moved onto the star. But that's a minor point. From the point of view of everybody who looks casually at it, sheet has now moved into Aries. Now this produced a massive change. And with the moon's nodes changing sign, Jupiter and Uranus changing sign, Saturn opposing, and Pluto squaring, we had the Arab Spring.
Right.
We had the earthquakes in Japan. And last year, we had a whole bunch of other stuff. We had the earthquakes in Haiti and other massive disasters.
Yeah, we have
tornadoes
yeah.
of the most phenomenal sort in America.
Right.
Huge things are happening in the world at the moment, and they can be connected in many ways to the movement of Pluto, the movement of the fixed stars, and the movement of the outer planets and the nodes. So we've got, traditionally speaking, Saturn and Jupiter were the big movers of the generations, of the big switches, of the big changes. So when you have a conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter, it happens every 20 years or so, it's a massive thing. When you have an opposition, which we've just had, it's just as massive, only it's much more unpleasant. And we just had the opposition a few months back for Jupiter and Saturn. And lucky for you, they were in Libra, or Saturn's in Libra, while this is going on. The terrible things that are going on in the world at the moment can be tracked really quite readily by the astrological points, especially if they happen to coincide by aspect with issues that are in your own chart. I mean planets.
Right.
Points like the moon's nodes and the part of fortune, the angles of the chart, the angles being the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house and the 10th house. They are the most powerful parts of the person's horoscope chart, and any planets that are there or any transits that are happening there or progressions are massively much stronger than they would be if they were happening somewhere else. So we've got this big thing that everybody's going through at the moment. Everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, look, you live in the United States. I can't imagine that the people in the United States, say, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, could possibly have imagined the horrors that have been going on in the United States for the last few years. Now, some people say, well, that's just karma because of everything that America, the great, the bold, and the beautiful has been doing in other parts of the world, such as Iraq and Afghanistan. But I don't necessarily hold that. I think the whole world itself is going through massive things, and the people are being pushed by a wave. And the question is whether you're going to surf the wave or whether you're going to be swamped by the wave.
Right.
Now, if your house has lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in value, well, that's part of being swamped by the wave. So the main thing is to get out of the loan, whichever way you can, and bank in your stone.
Right.
You see what This is whether you get thrown off your surfboard and have your head broken on a rock.
Right.
Or whether you're able to come back to the surface.
Yeah, surfing is a great analogy for what we're talking about.